I had to make a decision there. If I was having to find that trail after dark, that wouldn't have been a good scenario at all. So I decided there, I was like, I'm doing this. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for my dad. I was doing this. There's no turning back.
What is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for the truth, but if we hear enough lies, then we no longer recognize the truth at all. What else is left but to abandon even the hope of truth and content ourselves instead with stories?
Well, Hills Bills, 1,000 subscribers. That's something else, man. I appreciate all you guys subscribing. I appreciate you guys sticking around through these slow times. You know, it's not been really a great creative time for me, but I'm hoping to come back. And I'll tell you this, I've got a really cool project coming down the line. Can't tell you what it is, but I'm working on a feature doc with a buddy of mine, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. But anyway, I figured to celebrate 1,000, I would tell the story of summiting Wind River Peak in the Wind River Range in Wyoming. So, when you get to Riverton, the first thing you see is the Wind River Range to the south. It's this beautiful stretch of the Rocky Mountains. In the middle of it, there's this awesome kind of a ramp, kind of a curved mountain, taller than all the others. And in the middle of it, there's this like chunk cut out of it. It's like a little U shape. It's a very peculiar looking mountain. And I remember the first day I saw it, I said, I'm climbing up that motherfucker. I don't know when, I don't know how. I'm going to be up there one day, though. And it wasn't until 3 years later that I was actually going to make the attempt. It was a Labor Day holiday weekend, and I was like, it's time. The weather's nice. This is going to be a perfect opportunity for me. So I said, I'm going to do it. I left early on Friday, got out to the trailhead in the early afternoon, and made a nice little head start before I set up camp. Yeah, it was a beautiful little area. The trees, you know, you get out there in the mountains, you can smell the pines. Set up a hammock, and I read some Lewis and Clark trails. It was really nice. Got some sleep and set off the next day bright and early because I had a nice chunk of trail to get through. I think I was looking at 8 miles, but then I took a couple of mile detour to see some lakes in there. So by the end of the day, my legs were busting. My back was sore from carrying all my gear. So I wanted to go as far as I could because the more I did today, the less I had to do tomorrow on summit day. But I only could go as far as my body would let me. So finally, I was just like, this spot looks good. I think I'm going to set up here. Set up my little tent, got my sleeping bag, made myself a little freeze-dried dinner, and then passed out because tomorrow was going to be the big day. So the next day, got up bright and early. And no, it wasn't bright at all. It was 4 a.m. So I got up, got on the trail, and just booked it. I took a light pack that day because there was no point bringing all my gear. Water, some food, just some first aid, just basic to get up there. Walked out of the woods, got into like a little meadow area with a nice little shallow lake there, and the sunrise was beautiful. Temperature was perfect, not a cloud in the sky. Because that was another thing too, reading a lot of trail reports, a lot of them ended in failure because, you know, you get up to the mountain, to the base camp, or climb halfway up the mountain, then the afternoon storms roll in. And if you're up there during a storm, that's not a great situation. But the weather was looking good. Got up to this bigger lake, which was basically at the base of the mountain. I was waiting to see the Wind River Peak pop up behind the hills, and it was finally revealing itself. At that point, the trail ends. Well, you know, I got to be up on top of the mountain, so I don't need a trail anymore. So I had a little rest and started making my way out. It was still a lot of up and down before you actually get to the base of the mountain. You know, looking at it from a side, and especially from a distance, you're like, oh, that's just a ramp. I could just walk right up that thing. Well, I learned that day to never underestimate the mountain because it wasn't as easy as it looked at all. So I just started walking up this thing. And, you know, I was still whooped from 2 days of hiking and all of the hiking that I had just done that day. So I was halfway up that mountain just cussing myself, just kicking myself in the ass. You motherfucker, you son of a bitch. You got to get up this hill. There's nothing to it but do it. You get the fuck up there, which I have to say was working. But as I was sitting there getting halfway up of this mountain, it was about 2 p.m. So I was basically halfway through my daylight. I'd been hiking since 4. I had to make a decision there. I had to either go on and try and summit this thing, not knowing how much daylight I would have left to get down this mountain, which is going to take a lot of time, as well as find the trail again, which was some distance into the wilderness. You know, if I was having to find that trail after dark, that wouldn't have been a good scenario at all. So I decided there, I was like, I'm doing this. I'm getting up there. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for my dad, who, you know, was struggling with ALS back at home. I was doing this. There's no turning back. Kept going up, just totally busted. Every 10 feet I took, I had to take a break. Just getting my bearings straight and just keeping on going. And I actually passed a father and his two younger kids, and they look like they are the same shape as I was in. They'd rather be back at home, but they got a memory they can cherish. The last stretch of this thing, I swear, was just like climbing almost vertically to get on top of this thing. But I finally did it. I think it was about 4:30 or 5. I was up there. I was at the Wind River Peak. I was on top of this thing. After all of these years of looking at it every day, I was here. I had summited my first major mountain. It wasn't a 14er, but it was a 13 and something. And to me, that's huge. So here I was up there. I was actually able to call and text some people. So I called up Dad. I was like, I'm up here. I did this for you. Texting my buddies down in town, telling them, you know, I might be a day late. So don't call any search parties until, you know, for a little bit. But yeah, took some pictures, admired the view. I mean, I was up on top of the middle of the range. So I could see my house. I could see where I worked. And then I could see on the other side of the range to Pinedale and the Oregon Buttes. I mean, it was unreal. And I was actually also able to see, you know, where that U shape was. It was it's an optical illusion where this mountain kind of ends here and another mountain juts up, and they're kind of like offset, but from a distance, it looks like it's a cut out of the mountain. So I got to solve that mystery. I got to see the glacier there at the bottom of the mountain. That's probably not going to be around for too much longer. Yeah, I was up there for probably 10 minutes, just admiring the view, thinking of Dad, just reveling in the accomplishment that I had just done after all of these years of working it up. And then I realized, all right, fun has been had. It's time to get back. We got to beat the sun down to the trail. And a lot of people think the way down off a mountain's way easier than going up. Well, that's not the case. It's just as hard. It's a whole nother different set of muscle groups, and it kicks your ass just as hard. Made it down back to the valley. I looked out, and there I saw like a giraffe. It looked like a long-necked creature, a huge creature. And I was like, it can't be a giraffe. There's no giraffes out here in the middle of the mountains. That's too big to be any other animal. That's got to be a tree, because it was just totally still. It wasn't moving at all. And I continued going forward, and then all of a sudden this tree booked it up the side of this giant-ass hill. And I said, well, shit, that was a damn elk. I remember thinking, man, I wish I could run up that hill just like he could. He was a hill that took me 30 minutes to climb. He was up there in 10 seconds, effortlessly. So yeah, I got to the hill he was at, chucked up that hill, and got back to kind of a smooth valley into some trees. And I remember getting on this giant boulder, just laying back, just relaxing, just resting a moment, looking at my map, trying to figure out where I was, because I was still not on a trail yet. And at this point, I was low enough in the valley that the sun was behind the mountains. So I still had some light, but now it was starting to get into a situation where I wasn't planning on it, but I was starting to think like, okay, here I am in the wilderness. I might have to stay out here a night until I have some light to find the trail. And while this was all going on in my head, I looked ahead of me, and now I see this pack of elk just grazing. They don't know I'm there. They're walking through out of the woods, and they're right in front of me, 10 feet. And some of them got racks like this, and it's the fall time, so they're bugling. And I'm telling you what, the bugle, I've never heard a more beautiful sound in nature. I mean, I'm getting the chills now just thinking about it. It was the most incredible sound I ever heard. And I was like, all right, I got to get back on this. So I head off, and they jumped off into the woods. But the whole way down this hill, I was hearing the bugles for the rest of the evening. But the threat of the night in the wilderness was still very real as it was continuing to get darker and darker. Found myself following this stream because, they always say follow the water. That was the best advice I had available to me in my brain. So I was checking the map, following the water. It's like, I think we're going in the right direction. And not too long after that, I see in the distance the trail sign, piece of wood with a plank on top of it, pointing right to where my house was. And I was like, we did it. We did it. So I hopped on that trail, hiked for another mile, got back to camp. And at that point, it was like 2% light out. It was darker than dark. So I just timed everything right somehow. Got lucky that day. Got into my sleeping bag, passed the fuck out, and just slept like a dead person. Yeah, packed up camp, hiked out of there, walked past some guys who were, had their fishing poles and their pots and pans and grease. They were going to catch and have a feast out in the mountains, which I thought was awesome. But I told them what I just did. I said, I'm going to go and have myself a steak. And they were like, that's awesome, man. Made it back to my car, and I remember being almost delusional driving out of the trailhead. I can't even describe it. It's like an ocean of trees you're driving through. Hills, just endless trees coming down out of the mountains into the foothills. And it was sunset. It was just beautiful. It was gorgeous. Made it back into town. I did end up having my steak, but that night I was like, I'm going to McDonald's. So I think I had 2 double cheeseburgers and a McFlurry, and I was happier than a hog and shit. I made it back home, showered, watched the brown water just fall off of me, and passed out. Passed out in my bed. It was the greatest sleep I ever had. And yeah, I did it. After all of those years talking about it, training for it, I finally got to the Wind River Peak. And man, it was great. So that's what I got for you today. I thought that was a good one for 1,000 subscribers. Thanks to everybody for sticking around. I hope to post more. I got some videos coming down the line, but not a very creative time for me right now, for a lot of reasons. But otherwise, thanks for listening to my bullshit. I hope you're having a good one. Take care of yourself. Be kind to other people. And until next time, take care.